Welcome to the Watchman Report, world news from a biblical standpoint, the biblical standard on current events, on prophecy, moral and social issues. And in this episode, we explore the Iranian war, the bigger picture.
Hi everyone. Well, there's huge trouble and turmoil in the Middle East, in particular in Iran, with the Israeli and American strikes. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the big prophetic story. We're going to go right back to ancient Persia and follow that prophecy of the Middle East throughout time to the current day and at the end into the future. So with that in mind, on the screen, what you can see are the 2 feet of Nebuchadnezzar. What we believe is that at the end of time, there's going to be 2 feet, 2 Roman feet, 2 Christian feet upon 2 territories of this earth. The 1 foot is going to be in Rome, and the other foot of Nebuchadnezzar is going to be in Constantinople. Now, currently, there is only 1 Roman Christian foot standing, and that, of course, is in Europe and in its heart in Rome itself. What we anticipate is that another Roman Christian foot is going to rise, and that's going to be in Constantinople. And there were 2 Roman empires, as we're going to find out, one in the west, which of course was Rome itself, and one in the east, which was headquartered in Constantinople, known as Byzantium. So that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at it all the way through Bible prophecy. So we're going to really begin. We're going to begin in Daniel chapter 11. And in Daniel chapter 11, we're in ancient Persia, approximately 535 BC. And everything in Daniel 11 is written before the events came to pass. So you'll see in verse 1, we are in the epoch now of Darius the Mede and Cyrus of Persia. So we're seeing the ascendancy of what we know to be the Medo-Persian Empire. But in Daniel chapter 11 and verse 2, we're going to move forward a little bit in time. It says there, "Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia." So after Darius the Mede and Cyrus of Persia, there were 3 kings. One was called Cambyses, the other one was called Bardia, and then the third was Darius the Great. But then a 4th king, it says, shall be far richer than they all. And the 4th king was the man called Xerxes, and he inherited his father's empire and the Grecian ambition. The ambition of the Persians was to thwart the might of Greece, and Daniel 11 is going to tell us that through the might of Xerxes. By his strength, it says, through his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Persia. So we're no longer in 535 BC now, we're in 480 BC, and Xerxes marches into Athens to punish the Greeks. And history tells us he burned Athens to the ground. Temples were looted, libraries were burned, and culture, or most of the culture, was lost. And the thing is, the Greeks, they never forgot this. Legend has it that every Grecian boy born of a Grecian mother was taught and told that they could be the avenger of Greece. And one man came. He was titled in his adulthood the Conqueror, and he came from Macedonia. And well, we know that man, the great retributor of Greece, as Alexander the Great. And in 334 BC, Alexander the Great came into Persia. And again, legend has it that he thrust his spear into Persian soil, turned to his soldiers and cried out, "On behalf of Zeus, I give you Persia." And Daniel now is going to give the metaphoric vision, the prophetic metaphoric vision of what's played out in Daniel 11. Daniel 11 and Daniel 8 are working in harmony with one another. So in Daniel chapter 8 and in verse 21, you'll see there that there is a Grecian he-goat. This is the goat, of course, of Greece. And Daniel 8 is explaining to us that he is against the Persian ram. And notice that the Persian ram has two horns. Well, that makes sense because the two horns represent the powers of the Medo-Persian Empire. I'd like us to note that the he-goat had one great horn, which was the first king. Now, we can identify through what we've seen in Daniel chapter 11 that that great notable horn is going to be Alexander the Great, who united the city-states against the Persians. And what we see next in verse 7 is that the goat ran at fury and smote the ram, and his two horns were broken. So Alexander the Great was the conqueror. He conquered the east and absorbed the Persian Empire. Hence why it says that the great horn broke off the two horns of the ram. The goat defeats the ram. Now, Alexander was a brilliant militant tactician, but his military campaign was cut prematurely. It really was. History tells us he died, right? Very, very suddenly. And in Daniel 8 and verse 22, it says there that the horn of the goat was broken. So that is Alexander's death. But then it says, and four notable horns came. Four notable horns came from one. So one horn breaks and four horns replace that one horn. Now, interestingly, Daniel 8, verse 22, just to prove that it connects to Daniel 11, Daniel 11, verse 4, speaking again of Alexander the Great, says, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven. So the four winds of heaven are the same as the four horns of the goat. And if we were to cement the idea even further, we'd only go to Daniel chapter 7 and we see the Grecian leopard, and that leopard has four wings. So we can see here that prophetically we're correct against history. Now, what happened in 323 BC? Well, Alexander's empire, the spoils of his empire, were divided up amongst his four most notable generals. Okay, so here they all are. There was Cassander, there was Lysimachia, there was Seleucus, and there was Ptolemy. Those were the four generals, the four horns, the four winds of heaven, and the four wings of the leopard. So what we'll do is we'll look at the territories now of these four generals in Alexander's empire. So you'll notice that Cassandra, well, he had Macedonia and Greece. Then you had Lysimachia, who had Thrace. You then had Seleucus, who had Syria and Iran. And then you had Ptolemy, who was of Egypt. Now, out of these four territories, out of these four sections of Alexander's empire, Daniel 11 is only going to focus on two of them. And these two territories are the ones that are going to border the Holy Land, that being the land of Israel. And so Daniel 11 is going to call them not by their generals' names, he's going to title them according to their territories. We're going to title one, the King of the North. And the King of the North was the territory of Seleucus, that being Syria and Iran and parts of Iraq. And then you have the King of the South, which was Ptolemy's territory, and that was Egypt. Now there's a problem in their tussle.
Thanks for staying with us for this report. We pray that the video report has provided some clarity to the situation in the Middle East. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and select all so you never miss a new upload. Don't forget to like, share and drop a comment in the comment section. We love to hear your thoughts. Make sure you follow our playlist and never miss a new report. Until next time, God willing, this has been the Watchman Report, bringing perspective to current world news from a biblical standpoint. Don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment in the comment section and let us know what you thought, and make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Please share it and spread the word. Thanks for watching, and remember to come back soon.